सनातन धर्म महाविद्यालय की संस्कृत सभा के सहयोग से संस्कृत विभाग द्वारा आयोजित अष्टावक्र गीता का ग्रंथीय अध्ययन पंचदश दिवसीय राष्ट्रीय कार्यशाला में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हमारा ये आज का सत्र दो विद्वानों द्वारा संबोधित होगा। पहली जो हमारी विदुषी पहले सत्र की जो वक्ता हैं वो अत्यंत प्रसिद्ध और केरल का जो कैलेडी का क्षेत्र है, जहाँ जो आदि शंकराचार्य जी की जो जन्मभूमि माना जाता है, उस केंद्र से हैं। वो है इंटरनेशनल स्कूल ऑफ शंकराचार्य स्टडीज, और वो विद्यालय है वो भी श्री शंकराचार्य संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालय कलडी के नाम से जाना जाता है। वहां पर हैं उस स्कूल की शंकराचार्य अंतर्राष्ट्रीय अध्ययन संस्थान की मैडम डायरेक्टर हैं, और जो दर्शन का विभाग है उसके अध्यक्ष पद को भी मैम अलंकृत कर रही हैं। मैम की एक लंबी सीवी है, करीब 50 to 60 पेजेस की है। उसको पूरा बताना मेरे लिए तो बड़ा कठिन होगा, बहुत समय जाएगा, लेकिन मेन बातें बता रही। मैम जो है वो मैडम की जो शिक्षा हुई है वो मद्रास यूनिवर्सिटी में हुई है। वहां से उन्होंने एमफिल पीएचडी की है, और सत्य साई स्कूल लर्निंग से उन्होंने एमए किया है, और मैडम गोल्ड मेडलिस्ट रही हैं, तो ये बड़ी बात है। और मलयालम हो, तमिल हो, हिंदी, संस्कृत, इंग्लिश, इतनी भाषाएं जानती हैं। और मैम जो है वो सिंगापुर में इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस में मैडम का एक पेपर, बेस्ट पेपर अवार्ड सिंगापुर जैसे कंट्री से मैम लेकर के आई हैं। आईसीपीआर की मैम मेंबर रही हैं वहाँ पे, और अपने विश्वविद्यालय में प्रो वाइस चांसलर रही हैं, और आईक्यूएसी की कन्वीनर रही हैं, और अनेक पदों को अनेक कमेटीज में मैडम रही हैं। तो ऐसी हाई प्रोफाइल प्रोफेसर बड़ी मुश्किल से मिलते हैं। ये तो हम सबका सौभाग्य है कि मैम हमारा निवेदन स्वीकार किया। मैम थोड़ी सी मैम के जो कुछ परिवार के लोग हैं वहाँ थोड़ी सी मेडिकल की समस्या भी थी, लेकिन फिर मैडम से हमने अनुरोध किया तो मैडम ने हमारा निवेदन स्वीकार किया। तो मैम के हम बहुत आभारी हैं, और मैं आत्माराम सनातन धर्म कॉलेज की ओर से और समस्त प्रतिभागियों की ओर से मैं आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत करता हूं। मैम आप अनेक शोध पत्रों, जो जर्नल्स होते हैं उनकी एडिटर रही हैं, अनेक पुस्तकें आपकी प्रकाशित हैं, और मैं तो सीवी में देख रहा था जो जो एक प्रोफेसर कर सकता है वो सब कुछ मिलता है। 56 पेज किया, उसमें नहीं कि कुछ नॉनसेंस चीजें हैं, सब कुछ बड़ी कीमती चीजें मैडम ने इन्वेस्ट कर रखी हैं। और मैडम सीनियर प्रोफेसर हैं, अपने विश्वविद्यालय में सीनियर प्रोफेसर हैं। तो मैम का जो पकड़ है वो भारतीय दर्शन में भी और पाश्चात्य दर्शन में भी, ऐसा दार्शनिक पाना भी बड़ा मुश्किल है। जनरली लोग होते हैं तो केवल वेस्टर्न फिलॉसफी जानते हैं या इंडियन फिलॉसफी जानते हैं। मैम की जो पकड़ है वो दोनों में है, और संस्कृत भाषा में भी मैम की पकड़ है। संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालय की ही मैम आचार्य हैं। तो ये हम सबका सौभाग्य है कि आदरणीय प्रोफेसर श्री कला एम नायर मैम हमारे साथ हैं। मैम आपका हार्दिक अभिनंदन वंदन करते हुए मैं अब आपको अपना सत्र संचालित करने के लिए आमंत्रित करता हूँ।
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I there is a resonance. I think Madhavi, you have to mute yourself. Let me see now. Yeah, now there is no resonance. So thank you for those very, very kind words. All this means that Madhavji likes me, or he is a good friend, that is all. The 56 pages CV just doesn't mean anything. You all will have much more extensive CV when you will come to my age. So my CV or my biodata is what I'm going to speak. So you assess me, please, in terms of what I'm going to speak. So once again, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I read Ashtavakra Gita as I was asked to do the seventh chapter, which is a very small chapter consisting of 5 verses. So I don't think you'll be able to see me, but I'm going to show you the slides so that I can uh, easily speak to you. And I'm a little fast speaker. So let's see. And my timing is 1 hour. Did I hear it right, Madhavji?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. 1 hour.
That's right. So that's an ample time. And we'll have also some discussion time. Yeah, here we
Yes,
go. Uh, so, friends, I learned that you have had quite a lot of classes so far with Ashtavakra Gita, and I'm supposed to address you a little earlier, but due to, as Madhavji has said, due to some medical emergency in the family, I had postponed it, and I thank God that I could now address you. Friends, Ashtavakra Gita, by now you would have known that, quite like Bhagavad Gita, is structured in a conversational mode. What are the privileges in adopting a dialogical method? You know that in philosophy there are several methods, what we call the philosophical method, and one is dialogical method. And you also know that dialogical method has been resorted to by both the Greeks as well as the Indians since ancient times. If you look at the Socratic method, the famous Socratic method, where Socrates has adopted this dialogical method, he would go early in the morning to the marketplace, sit in a in a store, and then as he sits there, there will be youngsters surrounding him, and he would throw questions to him. For instance, it's the famous Theaetetus, which all of you might have read, where he asks the question, "Oh dear Theaetetus, what is knowledge?" And then Theaetetus comes up with a very straight and commonsensical answer: knowledge is perception. And then there is a counter questioning like, how can knowledge be perception? Because there are perceptual errors that happens, and then Theodotus comes up with a more sophisticated answer. Knowledge could be true belief. Again, Socrates comes up with a counterpositions saying that no, knowledge cannot be a true belief either, because there are true beliefs which go wrong. And then I don't want to narrate the whole of the Theaetetus. You know what has happened and how Socrates arrives at the JTB definition as early as 3rd century BC. And this method was much more efficiently, no comparison between Greek. I'm not trying to, project that Indian philosophy was some way higher than the Greek. No, each tradition is beautiful and fine in itself. Uh, but what is unique about the dialogical method that is employed in India was that it always tried to dive deeper, much, much deeper than, and the questions were much deeper than the questions that were asked either by Socrates or by, even the pre-Socratic thinkers. So far about the dialogical method. So all that I want to impress you is the dialogical method, the conversational method has been resorted to since ancient times, and to this day dialogical method seems to be or has been functioning as one of the best method. I'm trying to show you why dialogical method is so very privileges over other philosophical methods. You know that there are several other philosophical methods. What is so very important in dialogical method? One reason that I would like to, there are several, but one reason that I would like to bring to your notice is that this is something which is experiential. Uh, what is experiential for me is during a conversation, what happens is it appears as if that in the presence of the other is the disciple, the student. In the presence of the other, your consciousness turns out to be more and more creative, and you will speak in such a creative fashion to your own astonishment. You seem or you hear yourself speaking things of which you haven't thought of. You wouldn't even dream. I'll tell you examples. In fact, in my own classes, very often I tell my students, actually, I don't come to teach you. I come to listen to myself. You seem to provoke me. You seem to make my consciousness so very creative that I love hearing myself in your presence. Though the students are passively sitting, they're not passive. There is a constant interaction that takes place between consciousness. And I want to relate several examples, several experiences that I've had. I'll just relate one example. Once I was trying to teach, some portions of Sri Harsha's Khandana Khandagadya. And you know that in Khandana Khandagadya, it's a beautiful text where Sri Harsha relates, puts an analogy of Maya with language. And I was enchanted by that. The Maya, the principle of Maya being language. And I have the habit of looking through the window and speaking. So I was looking through the window. It's a classroom. There were students sitting before me. I was conversing. And then suddenly I realized that I'm not touching the ground. For a minute I was scared, in fact. I felt as if that my feet is not touching the ground. But this experience, just I shared it with Professor Billy Moria. Then Billy Moria, we were driving together. Then Billy Moria said that, yeah, Srikala, this happens. Because no, sorry, I can't speak that this fluent in Hindi. So then Billy Murray was saying that, yeah, Wittgenstein also says something about it. I do not know what Wittgenstein has said. But whatever, this is my experience, and I have one or two such experiences in this long service of mine, whatever. So all that I wanted to impress you is that in a dialogical method, the speaker's consciousness becomes so very creative in the presence of the other. And I have cited how classroom teaching is the best example for that. So, with regard to the text that we are going to consider today, that is Ashtavakra Gita, both the Guru, that is Ashtavakra Muni, and the Shishya, Maharaja Janaka, are no ordinary individuals. Both are enlightened souls, and you wouldn't get a conversational text where you have such two magnificent personalities participating in the discussion or debate. Now, there is one significant difference the text bears when compared to the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, this is my own. If you have objections, we can discuss it at the end. In Bhagavad Gita, recently I have taken Bhagavad Gita. I taught the whole text of Bhagavad Gita for a community of students in one of the US universities. So, in Bhagavad Gita, what happens? Arjuna, by and large, asks naive questions, largely questions that seek clarifications. Arjuna doesn't go conceptual at all. He just asks Krishna, can you explain more about the differences between the types of karma, so on and so forth. Absolutely, he doesn't go anyway conceptual. While Janaka appears to be an ideal student, he is an enlightened personality. He seems to be at once converting the theory into praxis. As Ashtavakra Muni gives him insights, in no time he meditates over it and then makes the theory or converts the theory into praxis. And that is what you see in the second chapter onwards. And very often we have the Advaita Anubhuti, the experience of the singularity of consciousness by Janaka. In fact, the uniqueness of the text is also thus that it emphasizes more on Advaita Anubhuti rather than conceptual discussions. There are several works which deals with Advaitic principles. But what makes Ashtavakra Gita different from the rest is that here the language is very straight, and over and above that it focuses on the Anubhuti part of it, the Advaita Anubhuti part of it, instead of focusing on what is the Jiva, what is the Jagat, and what is the relation between the Jiva and the Jagat, what is the relation between Ishvara and Jiva, and so on and so forth, the routine textual or conceptual discussions. No, Ashtavakra Gita doesn't undertake such conceptual discussions. Also, despite having realized the potencies of the Shishya, namely Janaka, the Guru still interrogates him, asking him pinching questions like, you would have seen in the second chapter, you would have by now studied this. Avinashanam atmanam ekam vijnaya tattvataha तवात्मज्ञानस्य धीरस्य कथम अर्धार्जने रतिः. He is saying katham ardharjane rati. See, one having known about the nature of the self which is immortal, how do you have ardharjane to accumulate wealth? How can you have rati, that is desire, in accumulating the wealth? So, such pinching and pointed questions which were raised by their preceptor makes Janaka think, and there is sharp discussion, very sharp discussion. And here, both of them are not trying to conceptualize, and therefore the text is least theory leaded. Instead, you are drawn to praxis. As we get into the text, you will know this. You are also probably taught about the legend behind the creation of the text. Even if I am repeating, I will quickly try to recapitulate what happened one night. It seems Janaka had a dream as if he is begging bowls, and suddenly he got up. He was worried, and he had a doubt. Which is the true Janaka? Is it the beggar Janaka he saw in the dream, or the Janaka, the king? Who is the real Janaka? And you know how Ashtavakra has answered. He said that both are apparent. The beggar Janaka in the dream is apparent, as well as the Janaka, the king, is also apparent. And you know the rest of the answer because you have already been taught all this. So the language, that is also, which is unique about it. And of course, as I was teaching Bhagavad Gita to the foreign students, as I've said, that one thing that impressed is, Bhagwan's language that is so very straight. And he is not Advaitin or Vishishta Advaitin or Advaitin. What he has to say, he has said it's so very straight. And Ashtavakra Gita also follows the suit. And there is absolutely no obscurities. As the early Wittgenstein has said, whatever can be said clearly. And that is the message that you will get when you read both the Gitas, Ashtavakra Gita, the other is Bhagavan's own language. There is no comparison whatsoever. Teak. So I will once again take you to the slides. So the language is exceedingly simple and straight, and the text is also popular for its propagation of Ekajivavada and Shrishtivada. We are also aware of how Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa valued the text. It seems Ramakrishna Paramahamsa often used to ask young Narendra to read the text, but little young Narendra had a distaste for Advaita, which persisted in fact throughout the life, I suppose. And therefore he refused to read the text, and the master, it seems, insisted that please read the text at least aloud, at least for him, because he wanted to listen to the Ashtavakra Gita. And that is the significance Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa gave to Ashtavakra Gita. Now, I am asked to address 7th chapter, as I have said, the Anubhava Panchagam, the 5 slokas, which describes the beautiful experience that Janaka has had after listening to the Advaita nature of reality and his phenomenal existence. So we have the description of a Jivan Mukta, if you like, a realized soul and his approach to the persisting world. Look at the first shloka. I'm going to the first shloka. Sorry, I don't have the Sanskrit script loaded in the system, so therefore I couldn't write the shloka in the slide, but I will read it out. Mai ananda mahambodhau vishwapota itastataha bhramati swandavadena na mamastya sahishnuta. Once again, Mai ananda mahambodhau vishwapota itastataha bhramati स्वान्तवादेन न ममास्ति असहिष्णुता अन्वयः महाबोधौ मयि स्व अन्तवादेन मनसा इत्यर्थः नीयमानः विश्वपोतः विश्वरूपी नौका इत्यर्थः इतस्ततः भ्रमति तेन मे किञ्चिदपि असहिष्णुता नास्त्येव. So this is the meaning. I will give the English translation to it. Here, Janaka says that myself being a huge, mighty ocean, I have no problem or trouble with the world, roaming about here and there, led by the Antakarana. Now, friends, what he wants to communicate is that he identifies himself as pure consciousness, which is like a huge mighty ocean, and he compares the worldly experience, the phenomenal experience, as a boat roaming about here and there, led by the antakarana or manas. So being led by the manas, you have the worldly experience, which is, swinging, going here and there. But Janaka says, I have no problem. That doesn't perturb me. It doesn't perturb me at all, or I am perturbed the least with this roaming boat being led by the manas or the antakarana, because I know that I am a huge, mighty ocean of chit consciousness. Now, friends, here the similes employed are telling. First, the self is compared to a huge ocean. Now, the absolute consciousness has been compared to ocean in many texts. You would have seen in many systems. It's not a novel analogy at all. For instance, in the Yogacara system, Vasubandhu compares Vijnana Ghana, the storehouse consciousness, with a deep and calm ocean. Buddhasanga and Vasubandhu. So where they say that, there is a slight, difference, distinction he draws between the individual consciousness and the storehouse consciousness, Vijnana Ghana, says, and which is like a deep, calm consciousness. So again, in the Bauddha tradition, you have Madhyamakas like Nagarjuna, who also use this analogy of your ocean. In Vedanta, of course, ocean is a favored analogy, often used by all streams of Vedantins, be it Advaitins, Vishishadvaitins, Dvaitins, all of them have used this. In fact, it started with Gaudapada's Karika. So now let us explore a little why this ocean becomes so very favored comparative point. There are reasons why ocean becomes such a preferred comparative point. First, its apparent limitlessness. See, you can't see the other side of ocean while you stand beside a river. You can see the other shore, but standing in front of the ocean, you cannot see the other side because it is limitless. At least it appears as if it is limitless. So its apparent limitlessness brings it quite close to consciousness. Second, the forms that it inherently carries within it, the waves, which are part of the ocean but appears to be different. And we will soon, Janaka is going to use this analogy again. So there are forms that it inherently carries within it, part of it, but appears different. Third, the uniform nature of taste everywhere. Everywhere the water tastes little salty. So if you take a handful of water, or you just put one drop on your tongue, the taste is just the same. Quite like consciousness, whether it is a minute consciousness or it is Vijnana Ghana, or it is the absolute consciousness, the nature is same. This also has been used. These factors have been used by those who employ this analogy. And again, the immeasurable depth, that is one of the major reason why ocean analogy has been resorted to. The immeasurable depth. See, when you stand before the ocean, there is an awe, wonder, fear. You feel little. You are scared. There is fear, but at the same time there is a joy. So your feeling towards ocean is a mixture of all this. You're afraid, but still you would like to go into the waters. So the immeasurable depth is the fourth characteristic that might have prompted these people to employ the analogy. Also, the noisy exterior and the silent inner part of the ocean, quite like the individual consciousness, is yet another feature. See, the individual consciousness, at the exterior it is very noisy and bubbling with activity, but as you revert to the self, the inner self, it is all silent with no activity whatsoever. So, this is yet another factor which is common with both ocean as well as consciousness. So is the case with the Vishwapota, that is, the world being compared to a boat led by the mind. Now, this analogy is also a very useful analogy, according to me. Generally, the mind has been compared as a wandering boat led by the vices the individual has. That is the usual analogy of the mind being, led by the wind of the vices. That is the usual analogy. But here, a strange analogy has been employed, but I like the analogy. It's very useful. Here, a better analogy has been used where mind is compared to a storm and the phenomenal world or the worldly experience. And friends, there is no difference between the world and the worldly experience. Why? Because, see, as an epistemologist, I must tell you that we have no reason to believe that there indeed exists a world independent of us. All that we can say is that we have experience. We get phenomenal experience. So I have the experience of the laptop. But over and above my experience, if I were to say that there is a laptop that is existing independent of me, that is a bit arbitrary. So, so, arguing in this fashion, phenomenal world and phenomenal experience are identical, at least from the Advaitic position. So, the analogy sounds better for me for two reasons. For one, the chit or consciousness is distinguished as the drik, distinct from the drishya, because here when the world is boat, the world becomes the drishya, and the chit, that is pure consciousness, the I gets identified with the pure consciousness and it becomes the ocean. Second, the speaker is distinguishing between the instrument, namely the mind, and the product of it, namely the phenomenal experience. See, in the routine analogies, the mind becomes the boat, but here the worldly experience becomes the boat. What is the benefit? This analogy seems better because there is a distinction by which drawn between the wind, which is the mind, and the boat, which is the phenomenal experience. So, boat is an instrument, while the phenomenal experience is the and look at the confidence of Janaka. He says, I'm least perturbed by the phenomenal experiences of this boat that swing like a pendulum. That keeps, swinging. For I realize that I am the ocean upon which the boat floats. There is the Adhara Adheya Sambandha. Now, what is Adhara Adheya Sambandha? What is the substratum and what is placed upon this substratum? The Adhara is the ocean, which is the support for the boat, and its existence or non-existence barely reflects on the nature of the ocean. The ocean is in no way dependent upon decorative piece. And other than that, when you define ocean, the boat in no way comes into the lakshana of ocean. In other words, ocean by no means depends on the boat for its existence, while the boat depends for its functional existence on the ocean. If not in the ocean, if not to use as a travel mode in the ocean, boat has no meaning whatsoever. So the boat has its function, depends on the ocean for its functional existence. So this is the Adhara Adheya Sambandha. It also indicates the tuchatva of the phenomenal experience to the absolute consciousness. Even when you deep ocean, the boat is tucha. It is meaningless. It's very small. Tucha. Those students of Sanskrit know what is tucha. The tucha of the phenomenal experience to the absolute consciousness. For a big, huge ocean, a floating boat is very insignificant. Of course, when one paints an ocean, now I want to, I don't have time to speak the whole thing, but often you would have seen, whenever whoever paints an ocean, invariably will place a boat on it. What does it mean? It's the literature part of it, because he draws the ocean invariably with a boat. Now this aesthetic aspect is something unique to the Jiva Swabhava. That is, uh, the boat represents actually the Jiva Swabhava. That is why, in the aesthetic representation of the ocean, invariably a boat gets represented. Well, more in the discussion if you want. Now let us go to the second shloka. Mayi ananta mahambodhau jagadvichihi swabhavatah udetu va astamayatu name vridhi nacha kshatihi. Mahambodhau mayi jagadrupi vichihi udetu va astamayatu. तद मयि वृद्धिं या क्षतिं कर्तुमशक्तः इति तात्पर्यः. So what does it mean for those who do not know Sanskrit? What he is trying to say is, me, who is identical with the big huge ocean of Bodhi, that is consciousness, there naturally arises waves which are the phenomenal experience. They may arise, they may die out. It doesn't add or subtract the volume of consciousness. Quite like the Vichi, the waves do not, when they die out, that doesn't reduce the volume of the ocean, the waters in the ocean, nor does it when rises adds up to the volume of the waters in the ocean. So similarly, the phenomenal experience doesn't add or subtract in any significant fashion the consciousness in the individual. Now this is the sum and substance. Now the routine use of wave analogy is to strike the identity of the Jivatma and Paramatma. All of you would have seen the analogy, wave analogy. Routinely the wave analogy has been used to speak about the Jivatma Paramatma Sambandha. But here the author uses it to refer to the phenomenal experience that the realized person, the worldly experience that the realized person may undergoes. Here, through the wise use of the wave analogy, the author indicates how the phenomenal experiences arise in the self. We know that waves are the fringes of the ocean. It happens at the exteriors of the ocean. In the deep ocean, there are no waves. When the consciousness is in touch with the exterior factors. So the suggestion is this. When the consciousness is in contact with the exterior factors, it takes the form. It takes a form and a name and appears as if it is different from the ocean, while it is not in any way different from the ocean. In fact, this analogy is telling. It's a beautiful analogy, because if you go further, the noise the waves creates, the high rise and the low strides, all well represent our phenomenal experience. When you are joyful, there is a high rise, and when you are sorrowful, you are so very down. So these heights, the ups and the downs, all these are part and parcel of a phenomenal experience. So the wave analogy is very telling. Further, let me take the analogy to its extremes, if you permit. Quite like the waves, the phenomenal experience opens avenues for the self to come into contact with the other. Who's the other here? The shore. When the waves touch the shore, it is as if the waves, the ocean is touching the other. that is the shore. You would have heard the poets describing the entry of waves to the shore as if they come to kiss the shore, or the sea extends its arms to embrace the shore. You would have heard several poems where the ocean is extending its arms to embrace the shore or kiss the shore, so on and so forth. These are beautiful poems. All these indicate that the waves desire to move away from the deep sea to its exteriors, willingly losing the self to merge with the other, that is the shore. So here I have depicted the shore as the other, also at the cost of losing one's own self. Also, the verse indicates that the phenomenal experiences do not cause enhancement or distraction of the self. That is what he has said, that it doesn't cause name vriddhihi nacha kshatihi. It doesn't add or subtract the consciousness or its gravity in any fashion. Here, one thing is noticeable, that is, when Janaka says that I am not bothered about the waves of the phenomenal experience, or they do not bother me, it may cause some doubts. First, you all might be thinking, will there be phenomenal experience at all to people who see oneness everywhere? Sarvatra ekatvam anupashyataha. So those people who are able to see ekatvam Sarvatra, how will they have the duality experienced at all? Will they ever have phenomenal experience? In that case, what is it that Janaka is speaking about? The sloka, according to me, can be interpreted in two ways. Either we can say that Janaka is speaking about his persisting struggle in confronting the phenomenal experience. It is not that the phenomenal experiences have withdrawn absolutely. There is a persisting struggle that is going on, and he is trying to overcome this struggle, this confrontation with the worldly experience, reminding himself of the lessons he has learned from Ashtavakra. Or the alternatively, you can also interpret the sloka saying that even for a Jivan Mukta there is indeed the phenomenal experience, but that do not bother him much. Now, according to me, both seem beautiful interpretations. Both seem fitting for me as far as the sloka is concerned. Now, let me move to the third shloka. Mai ananda mahambodhau vishwam nama vikalpana atishanto nirakara etadevaham sthidaha. Once again, Mai ananda mahambodhau vishwam nama vikalpana atishanto nirakara etadevaham sthidaha. Now in this sloka, no, I'll give you the Anvaya also. Mai chidbodha mahambodhau vishwam vikalpana eva asya शाश्वतः अस्तित्वं नास्ति इति सारः. अत्र महाभोधस्य स्वभावः किं चेत् तत् अतिशान्तः निराकारं च भवति इति तात्पर्यः. बोधरूपी अहम् अत्रैव स्थितः वर्तमानः इति तात्पर्यः. So let me now speak in English the sum and substance of it. So in this sloka, the chit consciousness, which is the storehouse consciousness, I'm using the storehouse consciousness, the absolute one, which is peaceful, silent, without any motion or change, and formless, has been identified as the nature of the real self. And the world is conceived as a product of imagination, kalpana. Now, friends, comparing world as a construct or an imagination is ancient, very ancient in Indian philosophical literature, and you will find its roots in the very Upanishadic literature itself. Later in 2nd century AD, Nagarjuna in Mula Madhyamaka Karika compares it with magical creation. A sheer construct. World, according to Nagarjuna, is a construct, something kalpana, which doesn't have any bhava outside one's imagination. Later, in 4th and 5th centuries, Swatantra Vijnanavadins also compared the phenomenal experiences as construct. If you read Dharmakirti's Nyaya Bindu, he defines Pratyaksha as, they are epistemologists. So he defines pratyaksha as kalpana bodham abhrandam cha. So pratyaksha is that which is devoid of construction and defeaters. I'm not getting into the details of that. So kalpana is or that the world is a construct, and subsequently Dharmakirti says that when you have a judgment of perception, or when you have perceptual judgment, it is the product of kalpana. So that the world or the phenomenal experience is a kalpana has been traveling down since Upanishadic times through various streams of Buddha down to Vedantans. I'll tell you, when you come to Shankara, the world, that's 8th century, the world is very often compared as a construct of one's imagination. I can give you any number of instances. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nija andargada pashyanya atmani mayaya. It goes on. So Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam. So Vishwam, the world is a very similar analogies has been brought in by Nagarjuna also. So the world is like a nagari, a city seen in a mirror. So such constructs, such analogies telling that the world is nothing but a construct is very, very prominent in Indian philosophical literature. Uh, in fact, all these systems speak about also levels of construction. Not only that the world is constructed, they speak of different worlds or different constructs. For instance, Vasubandhu speaks about three levels of reality: Parikalpita, Paratantra, and Parinishpanna. The Parikalpita is, a linguistic construct. Paratantra is the Vyavaharika world where you have the dependent existence, and Parinishpanna is a transcendental existence. Similarly, Madhyamaga, they also speak about the Vyavaharika and the Paramarthika, the two levels of reality. And when you come to Advaita, since Gaudapada, you have the three levels of reality, that is the Pradibhasika, Vyavaharika, and the Paramarthika. So the construction is not simple construction. They speak about Indian philosophers, by and large, across the schools, they speak about levels of such world construction. Now we are on to the fourth sloka. Natma bhave.
Please repeat this one.
Which point, beta?
Kindly repeat this one. Third one. I can't hear properly. Explanation of third sloka.
Oh, I spoke a lot about. Did you heard till where, beta? Till where you did?
Ma'am, actually voice not coming properly, so I can't heard anything about third sloka.
Oh, wait a minute. Madhavji, is my voice breaking?
No मैम, वॉइस इज क्लियर मैम. अल्पना जी, आपकी तरफ दिक्कत है, आपकी तरफ शायद कोई प्रॉब्लम होगी.
अच्छा, बट
आप लास्ट में क्वेश्चन पूछ लीजिएगा. अल्पना.
Okay, ma'am. If possible, please explain it in brief.
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
So in the third shloka, we have said that Mayananda Mahamodhau Vishwam Nama Vikalpana Atishanto Nirakara Etadeva Aham Asthidaha. So what he is trying to say, Janaka, is that I am a deep ocean of Bodha, that is consciousness, where the world is nothing but a construction, Vikalpana, and me being Atishantaha, peaceful, formless. I have sitting in this consciousness, and I was trying.
गगन जी, आप म्यूट कर लीजिए. गगन गुप्ता, माइक म्यूट कर लीजिए.
So, beta, I was trying to speak about the historical evolution of this use of world being conceived as a construct. So, I said in Upanishads, in Nagarjuna, and in Swatantra Vijnanavadins, and later in Shankara, and in several such systems. Close the door. Do your business. So that there is, sorry, there is an interpretation. I am at home. So what I was trying to say is that the world is a construct, and this conceiving the world as a construct is something that has been prevalent in the tradition since the Upanishadic period, and that has been carried out. So that is it for you, child. And now let me resume to the other shlokas. So I did speak about that. And now on to the fourth sloka. Natma bhaveshu no bhava tatra anante niranjane ityasakto spriha shanta etadeva hamasthidah. Natma bhaveshu no bhava tatra anante niranjane ityasakto spriha shanta etadeva hamasthidah. Anvaya bhaveshu parijinna vastuni atma nasti. Parijinna vastuni meaning that in the formed objects, that is in the plurality of entities, that is what we mean by parijinna vastuni, the delimited objects, the self is not there. Evameva anante niranjane chidatmani parijinna bhavatvam api na dashtam shakyaditi